It may still be early in the year, but way out in the Atlantic Ocean, on the Isles of Scilly, the sun continues to beat down day after day. And with the arrival of one of the key moments in the island's calendar, Easter, the surprising weather brings in hundreds of holidaymakers, drawn by the extraordinary quality and clarity of the spring light. It looks like being a brilliant start to the season. Up in the flower fields, they're busy getting ready for the weekend's church services. Easter is still a big religious celebration here, and almost everyone is involved one way or another. Down in the chapel, though, there's no sign of the Methodist minister, David Easton. It turns out he's at home, otherwise occupied.
Wat gaten bij haar toekomst. Welkom op onze eilanden. Ik wens u alle goed voor deze kampioenschappen.
His congregation may not be aware of it, but in fact David spent hours over the last few days trying to master a smattering of Dutch.
God zij kennen u allen.
This morning, on the sunniest Easter Sunday anyone can remember, David intends to explain everything to a packed house at the chapel.
We're going to think this morning about themes of darkness and light. When I asked you to shut your eyes and said, what do you see? You saw all sorts of things when you opened your eyes. One of the things that light does, it throws light on the world around us so that we see it in a different way and we see its possibilities. Some things you hear about, but it's only when you see them that you know it's true. Sometime this weekend I'm expecting a phone call from Holland because I've been asked at the gig weekend to bless a gig. And I've got to speak to the crew there who are asking me about what it's going to involve. Now, I've not been to Holland. I certainly don't know these people. And my only communication with them will be when I hear them at the end of the phone. But when they arrive and I meet them, then I will know what they're like for myself. Because I will have experienced them, I'll have seen them, I've met them. Seeing, I will know.
Nearly 500 miles away, just outside The Hague, the administrative capital of the Netherlands, a team of fanatical Dutch rowers are using every spare moment to practice for the upcoming World Gig Racing Championships on the Isles of Scilly. This is the only club in Holland devoted to gig rowing, using the traditional design of boat originating in the West Country of England.
Hoe schitterend die eruit ziet, zeg.
It's club organisers Peter and Sandra Arensman who are paying for the new gig. It's being built by shipwright Peter Martin back on Scilly, and they're closely following its construction on the internet. As members of the Dutch Protestant Church, they're keen to give the new boat a traditional blessing.
We called Peter and asked them, well, will the minister be able and willing to bless our new boat before it even touches the water? Because that's very important.
It's a very important start for the life of a boat. People understand that that if there's a God, he's happy about this gig, he's happy about the boat, and he will guard the boat during his life. It's a moment to think about it. It's not like, okay, here's the gig and there we take off. No, it's to make people think and realize and be grateful. It's a spiritual moment, also for people who don't have faith. It's important for us that we understand that there's more in life than just our earth and our world. And I think it's good that we try to connect and try to combine these two.
The boat has to be ready in just over 2 weeks' time, when the Dutch hope to race it in the World Championships on Scilly. So now the pressure is on Peter to make sure it really does live up to their exacting standards. Over at Old Town Bay, Heike the vet is doing her best to get on with life after the sudden and dramatic end to her relationship with fiancé Alistair. After the initial shock, Heike now seems to be at a complete loss. Have you learned any more about what happened, or are you still confused?
No, I think... No, you would have to ask him, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
What are you focusing on now?
Basically, I focus on my son. I always focus on him. And my work.
How is Sammy?
He's okay. Yeah,
He was very fond of Alistair.
Yeah, he still is.
Does he still see Alistair?
Yeah, sometimes. They play on the beach or something.
Because you're quite a strong person, aren't you?
Yes, I think so.
Has that helped?
Yes, I think that definitely helps. You know, you have to take life as it comes. You know, deal with it.
Across in the main harbour, Heike's friend Nigel from the Airfare Cafe is on a mission. Nigel knows that Heike is much more upset than she's letting on. So, keen to keep her busy, today he's promised to take her and her son Sammy out on his boat. Nigel's making a good recovery after surgery on his shoulder, but he's still not back at work yet, so he's plenty of time to help Heike through this difficult period.
It was a very sad day when Heike came and said that it's no longer on. We were actually being involved in her honeymoon. She was coming to Germany with us to go to the beer festival with Alistair, and we were all going as a group. I think I only spoke to her the day previously about plans for the wedding and doing the photographs. I was going to do their photographs for the wedding. And everything seemed to be normal, and then the next day everything wasn't. So yes, it came as a shock.
Heike, what are you doing here?
I'm putting my first lobster pot down.
Is this your lobster pot?
Yes, my lobster pot.
What have you put in it?
This is frozen salted mackerel.
So you think you could get into this lobstering?
Why not? You know, it's just fun.
OK, go. It's not, I think, what Heike wanted, but she knows she's got good friends, and she's stoically German. She's very practical, and she's got a business to run, and she'll be all right.
It's a chilly, dank dawn over the main harbour at The Hague in the Holland. But with the gig championships on Scilly just around the corner, nothing's going to put off the fiercely determined Dutch rowers from their rigorous early morning routine. Training for racing is hard because at present they only have the one boat, so they're getting increasingly excited about the prospect of putting their new gig through its paces. Trouble is, no one can agree what to call it.
Ja, haringkaken en holmops.
Ja, of zure haring, maar dat is weer...
Ja, of goldfish, inderdaad. Goldfish, ja. Of water...
I'm really looking forward to blessing your gig at the end of this.
Back on Scilly, David Easton has managed to get hold of Sandra.
For that. So you're coming over here on Wednesday, are you? Yeah, well, I'll meet you on Thursday, and then we can talk a little bit more if we need to. And then, obviously, we can bless the gig on Friday afternoon, hopefully.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I look forward to meeting at the end of the week.
David will be leaving the islands in less than 3 months, and he wants the ceremony to be memorable. What you're going to be saying is actually quite poetic, isn't it?
Well, I hope so, but I mean, it's a blessing of a boat and it's a spiritual occasion, and you're sort of thinking about the people and the boat and the skill that went into it and the fact they're going to go out on the water in a beautiful setting. It's all, well, I suppose it's rather a sort of poetic type of occasion, yes. Water is a very elemental thing, and I think that makes you think about elemental things. And I suppose if you have any belief at all, faith is an elemental thing, isn't it?
David is sad to be leaving, and most of the islanders are very sad to see him go. He's hoping the blessing will be a fitting legacy to his 7 years on the islands. Ceylonians have a reputation for being wary of strangers. And today, one rather special visitor has arrived to find out for himself what life here is really like. The new Anglican Bishop of Truro, Bishop Tim Thornton, is on his first visit to the remotest corner of his Cornish diocese. He's here to lead a service of thanksgiving for the new church bells. But first, the chaplain to the Isles, Guy Scott, takes Bishop Tim on a tour of his unusual parish. Scilly is traditionally the first landfall for shipping approaching the English Channel from the Mediterranean and the Americas.
You'll see this rock is that one.
Oh, yeah.
And this rock here is that one over there.
Gosh.
And there she is, the Brinkburn, 1898.
It's thought as many as 2,000 shipwrecks litter the rocky seabed around the islands.
She was well off course, destined for France, and she ended up here.
But nobody was killed?
Everyone was all right, thankfully, yes.
Then there are the famous island puffins to be admired. Smaller than a blackbird, these tiny creatures, equipped with their comically coloured beaks, arrive on the isolated northern rocks of Scilly to breed in spring.
Oh, look at that. Gorgeous.
It's not long before the islands start to make quite an impression on the bishop.
It's a very beautiful place, and it's also a very dangerous place, and that's quite an interesting kind of contrast, you know, listening to the stories of all the wrecks and things. As someone was saying to me this morning, that people who live on the Isles of Scilly are very much in touch with the rhythm of life and the way in which the seasons work, and closer perhaps than some people who live in our country to nature and to some of the bigger issues in life.
Soon, Bishop Tim's being initiated into the sometimes tricky physical aspects of life here.
First time for everything, Bishop.
How are you?
Nice to meet you, Tim.
Very good to meet you.
I'm Jimmy.
Hello, I'm Tim. Hello there. Good to see you.
Say hello to Bishop Tim, Enid.
Hello.
Oh, it's Edna.
Edna,
He never gets it right.
I'm very sorry, Dorothy. I've learnt a little bit more about the way in which, if you live on what is a pretty small island, it's very important to find ways to bring yourselves together and be part of what is the community.
Bishop Tim's next job will be at the parish church of St Mary's, where the peal of brand new bells is awaiting to ring out across the islands for the first time. After his dramatic split with Heike, the rather solitary figure of Alistair has been seen recently keeping a fairly low profile. Alistair's been throwing himself into his passion for photography to keep his mind distracted. His former fiancée is a very well-known figure on Scilly, and news of their breakup has spread quickly. So, Alistair, what happened?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? But there were some really major unresolvable issues in the relationship, and it just seemed, I think, probably best for me and probably best for both of us that we sort of brought it to an end. I think if had we continued, it would have become increasingly difficult. Maybe it would have led to some serious arguments and unpleasantness, and I didn't want that for myself, you know, or for Heike. So, you know, we talked about it, and I think she understands, you know, how I feel, and, you know, I understand how she feels about things, and, you know, so, yeah, sadly, it has come to an end, yeah. One of the issues is that I realise if I want to go ahead and sort of do photography, then I might not, I may have to leave the islands. I mean, that's something that we need to face. And what with the new build with the vets practice, I mean, Heike, her life is very much here.
What was your parents' reaction? Because they were very excited about the wedding.
I think they feel there's no hope for me whatsoever, Yeah, I think so, yeah. They've been supportive, but they are understandably disappointed.
This is a very public place, Silly, isn't it? It's a bit like a goldfish pond.
Absolutely.
What's been the reaction to people? I mean, everybody knows Heike.
Yeah, they do. And what happens here is when things go wrong in relationships, people just make up. If they don't know what's caused it, they'll just make it up, and then they'll add a bit of spice to give it a bit of colour, So there has been some quite outrageous things drifting around, all of which are wholly incorrect. But yeah, this is part of city life. It's when it's good here, it's really good. But when things like this happen, it can be difficult. And I think the thing to do really is just to face it down. I mean, it would have been very easy for me to say directly after we split up, I'm going to go to the mainland for a week's holiday just to get away from it. But no, absolutely not, because I think the important thing is just to face it down. It's at the end of the day, it's between me and Heike, and so I think we're both just going to get on with life, really.
Alistair too must find time to decide what to do in the long term. The big question now is, does he stick it out on Scilly or throw in the towel and head back to the mainland? Up at the parish church, the new bells are all ready for their debut, and the new bishop is getting ready for his big moment.
Tonight will be the first time that this community has heard them ring out. So there's been, in a sense, silence until this moment, and from almost at the end, towards the end of this service, all of a sudden that noise will ring out across the sky, and at certain times you'll be able to hear it on the outer isles as well. So a very interesting new dimension which will unify the islanders in a particular kind of way.
It's a very rare occurrence in this day and age for a complete new peal of bells to be cast, and the church is getting its biggest congregation of the year so far.
We might well say the bells are clearly about noise. Ringing the bells, as we are about to do here on St Mary's, is not just about making a noise. It is highly significant. It's an act of faith.
The bells are in a very inaccessible area right at the top of the tower. A small TV camera's been installed to relay pictures of the rather squashed proceedings with the bishop, the chaplain and 8 nervous bell ringers to the huge congregation below.
Let the bells be rung. Let them ring out the praises of God.
Look to, trouble's going, she's gone.
Every major service, every baptism, wedding and funeral. The new bells will put the church right back at the heart of life on the Isles of Scilly. A hazy spring dawn over the main harbour on St Mary's. And for a moment you'd be forgiven for thinking you weren't in England at all. At Fiona Martin's B&B, breakfast preparations are underway for some newly arrived guests. The Dutch gig rowers are delighted to be back. It was here on Scilly that Peter Aronsman first met his future wife Sandra, and they've been returning every year since, now with 3 children.
It's good to be back here at Fiona's bed and breakfast, so that's nice.
Does it feel a bit like home here?
Absolutely, yeah. We could easily live here.
Then it's straight down to the Porthlow boatyard and the moment of truth for shipwright Peter. The Dutch couple have spent thousands of pounds and been waiting 12 months for this. Peter's a man of very few words and just lets them get on with their inch-by-inch examination. He knows they'll be expecting nothing less than the very best.
Ja. Dus het duidels en hier, maar dat heeft hij dan ook weer. Zoals front en zo, dat soort dingen zijn er ook allemaal ingeprent.
But he needn't have worried.
What are your impressions? What do you think? It's amazing. It's so beautiful. It's really, it's incredible. This must be the nicest gig ever built.
Are you proud? You should be. You should be. Yes, it's a shame to use it. It's still too beautiful.
Pete, you must be very pleased with their reaction.
Oh yes, yeah. It's nice to see the faces when they come in the door. Be good to get her in the water and out the way now and think about the next one.
They've even managed to agree a name, one they hope will reflect a truly winning future.
Vliegende Hollander.
And what does it mean?
Flying Dutchman.
Fly. How do you say the first word?
Vliegende.
Vliegende Hollander.
Yeah, sounds very good.
Vliegende Hollander.
Vliegende Hollander. I shall have to practice that. So how many years have you been coming over?
Well, I think this is my 13th year.
And my 11.
Oh, great.
And every year we come for a longer period, so last year...
First time we only came for...
2 or 3 days?
Yeah, 2 or 3 days, and now we're here for 12 days, I think.
Oh, right. So have you got the time out?
It soon becomes clear to David that these people from so far away have developed a lifelong love affair with the Isles of Scilly.
And, well, if you look at this, it's the combination of the islands, the nature, the flowers and the sea, and it's so quiet, combined with the rowing, that nothing can beat it.
As the first of the other gig rowing teams start to arrive from the mainland for the big weekend ahead, there's a real buzz about the forthcoming ceremony to bless the brand new gig. If only the weather will hold.
1, 2, 3, yo!
Peter and Sandra have been joined by a small army of their fellow club members from The Hague. They've been building gigs on Scilly for over 200 years, and the Dutch contingent can't wait to get this, the latest addition to the fleet, out onto the water.
That's what you want it.
De winkeltafel ook?
Welkom op onze eilanden. Welcome to these islands where the sky is always blue and the sun always shines. So we bless. We ask God's blessing on the gig Vliegende Hollander. May she be swift and true in the water, in calm and in storm. May she have a long life that gives pleasure to generations of sportsmen and women. Zyka Dysa Gig Idira Keerdut Zaitu Vata. Bless her each time of her launching and in her coming home. Ik wens u alle goed voor deze kampioenschappen. God zegen u allen. Dank u.
Thank you.
Bit wet, is that a problem or not?
No, not at all. It's made for water, so no matter it's from the air or from the sea. Yeah.
Much to the surprise of the crowd, David decides he's not going to miss the Flying Dutchman's maiden voyage. After all, this is just the kind of memory he wants to keep alive in his mind long after his days on Scilly are over.
May the sea be always open before you. May the gentle wind be cool upon your back. May the guiding star be clear along your way. And may the light of God shine on you from the rising of the sun until its setting beyond the western sea.
In the next programme, the head of the Methodist Church in Cornwall, the Reverend Steve Wilde, is planning a key trip with the help of a special friend.
Hi, I'm excited about going to the Isles of Scilly. Well, of course you are. We'll have a good time, Clarence. It's going to be wonderful.
Steve and his frog Clarence will be joining a large group of churchgoers from all over Cornwall who are on an important morale-boosting voyage to Scilly.
This is going to be a real affirmative action by the Methodists from the mainland for the Scillonians. We're not just here all about being miserable. Let's have some joy of the Lord.
And more terrible news for the beleaguered vet. Out of the blue, Heike discovers she's lost another much-loved part of her life on the islands. On the Isles of Scilly, Heike the vet's trying to get on with life after the sudden cancellation of her wedding plans. She wants to branch out a bit and has decided to try her hand as a driving instructor.
Okay, how do you proceed?
So take your foot off the brake and wang it on the gas.
Don't use words like wang.
Aye.
Okay.
As the big gig racing weekend gets underway, the Dutch contingent are delighted at the brand new boat that's been built for them down at the Portlow boatyard.
It's amazing, it's so beautiful. It's really, it's incredible. This must be the nicest gig ever built.
It's a shame to use it. It's still too beautiful.
Despite the weather, the Methodist minister David Easton pulls off a dramatic blessing of the new boat.
Welkom op onze eilanden. Welcome to these islands.
And gets the most important weekend in the Scilly year off to a flying start.
May the gentle wind be cool upon your back. May the guiding star be clear along your way. And may the light of God shine on you from the rising of the sun until its setting beyond the western seas.
After months of almost unbroken sunshine, the weather suddenly takes a turn for the worse on the Isles of Scilly. And at a critical moment, 2,000 rowers and supporters are arriving from all over the West Country and beyond for the World Gig Rowing Championships, at a stroke doubling the island's resident population. This isn't the start they were hoping for. Up at the island's only airport, there's chaos. Nigel and Carol have been told by the council that they must close their airfare cafe for long-planned renovations. The timing couldn't be worse.
Gig weekend this weekend.
restaurant and no kitchen, no counter, no food. The Monday after gig weekend is one of our busiest days of the year, obviously with people leaving, and it is a good day for us. We have usually got things prepared and things made and things ready by now, so I'm more than a little bit anxious because we haven't got a loaf of bread between us.